The great UCLA basketball coach John Wooden actually started his career as an English teacher who coached basketball and baseball for extra money. Throughout his career, he always thought of himself as a teacher, and he was focused on making sure his basketball players learned the game. He famously said, "You haven't taught until they've learned." To help his players learn, he applied the 4 laws of learning: explanation, demonstration, imitation, and repetition. But he sometimes joked that there's really 7 laws of learning: explanation, demonstration, imitation, and repetition, 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 and repetition. Repetition is essential for learning. Obviously, somebody isn't going to learn to become a great free throw shooter by shooting a free throw or two. So why would you think you can learn the information from a textbook by reading it once or twice? There's a neurological explanation for why learning requires repetition. Each time someone shoots a free throw or a layup or a jump shot, neurons fire in their brain, which are associated with each of those complex movements. And each time these neural pathways are fired, myelin forms around the neural pathways to insulate the neural pathways so the electrical signals travel more accurately within the brain, allowing the basketball player to perform skills more quickly and with fewer mistakes. Preparing for a basketball game requires hundreds or thousands of hours of intentional, focused practice, which might include tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of repetitions to achieve expert status. Obviously, a student isn't going to prepare thousands of hours for a single test unless they're preparing for a grad school test like the GRE, LSAT, or MCAT, but the laws of learning apply nonetheless. Learning, true, deep, lasting learning, requires repetitions. This is why, for almost everyone, just reading a textbook once or twice does not allow people to master the material. Instead, students need to study in a way that they get repetitions. So they fire neurons and myelinate their neural pathways associated with the information that they're trying to learn. I found my 5-step study method much more effective than reading a textbook for a number of reasons, 5 of which I'll mention. First, many people, including myself, find it difficult to stay focused reading textbook chapters. It's all too easy to run your eyes over the words for 4 pages or so before realizing you don't have any idea what you just read. Our minds tend to wander off to other things like what we did last weekend or what we might do next weekend. By skimming and exploring lecture notes and textbook chapters with purpose, the purpose being to figure out which concepts are most important to focus on, it is much easier to stay focused because you're on a mission, you're not just wandering around. Distractions become less distracting. Phone notifications are easier to ignore when you're on a mission as opposed to when you're wandering around aimlessly. Second, the system causes you to engage in higher order thinking. You're making decisions about what information is most important and how it all fits together. Creating your study sheets will give you spatial cues to recall information. You might think, okay, that was in the lower right-hand corner next to the other thing, and that could help you remember. Third, the approach is polysensory. You aren't sitting passively with only your eyes moving. To create your summary sheets, your eyes are moving while your hands are highlighting or writing little notes. And when it comes time to filling out your study sheets, you are writing the information by hand. This is key. For some reason, humans retain information when they write things down by hand better than when they type them out on a laptop. It might seem so last century and so analog, but the bulk of your studying should be analog, with a pen or pencil and paper. As an added bonus, paper, unlike phones, does not have notifications, so it's easier to stay focused. Fourth, this method keeps you honest. With flashcards, you can kind of cheat. Look at the keyword on the front of the card, come to a vague realization that you don't know the answer, then look at the definition on the back and say to yourself, oh yeah, I knew that. But you keep flipping through flashcards anyway, even though you don't really know the definitions because you kind of fool yourself. But with my system, you're able to clearly see what you know and what you still need to learn. When completing the study sheets, the parts left blank let you know what you need to focus on to master the material. Fifth, the system creates clear boundaries for your study. There's a clear starting line and a clear finish line. Once an assignment or chapter is assigned, you have a clear starting point to skim the material, identify what you need to study, create your summary sheets and study sheets, and you know when you're done studying as well. As soon as you can fill in your study sheets with the definitions missing, fill in the study sheets with the keywords missing, and get to the point where you can write it all out on a blank sheet of paper, then you know you are done, whether the exam is in 2 days from now or 2 weeks from now. If you learn the material in advance, you can fill out your study sheets closer to the exam as a refresher, just to be sure. But you don't have to wait until a day or two before the exam to get started. In college, I was a student athlete with a part-time job. I didn't have time to waste. My study system worked well for me because I was able to memorize information more quickly, avoid distractions more effectively, and stop procrastinating. Because I knew that instead of wandering around a boring textbook aimlessly, I was on a mission to find the key concepts, master them, and move on to other things, like papers I had to write or fun things that I wanted to do with friends. So like many good things, the system is reinforcing. You have a good experience, you want to do it again, and then it becomes a habit, and habits don't require as much psychological effort. So if you develop good study habits, studying becomes easier, and you become happier and a more knowledgeable person.